Everyone, thank you for joining me. Sorry I missed yesterday's day text. As I mentioned before, at times I get so busy or caught up with things that I'm not able to make every single day text that we schedule most of the time for weekdays at 5 a.m. But I do my best and I try to make all of them. So for now, we'll keep the schedule the way it is. I know it works good for people around the world. It's not always the best for people here in the United States, if you're like me and get up on the West Coast, but I'm an early riser, so it's not usually a problem. It's only when I have an extra busy schedule of things that I sometimes get caught up and, you know, can't get to everything. So I appreciate your patience in that regard, and just know that I always try to make everyday text during the week. Good morning. So if you don't see me and for some reason you don't see it scheduled, if it's scheduled, I'm almost always going to be here. But if you don't see it scheduled, just look for the next day or wait for the schedule to show up and I'll be back. So we're working our way through the letter of James. We're in chapter 3. We're going to read verses 10 through 18 today. We're going through the whole letter. So I try to group texts together that have a similar application. Sometimes, various texts go together, and it sort of had a running narrative that I don't want to break up, even if every single point doesn't flow in the same way. But it's the same letter, so it still has the same sense of encouragement and wanting to help the early Christians, no matter which verses we group together. But let's take a look at verses 10 through 18 and see what application we can make. Okay, James chapter 3 verse 10 starts out, sometimes I will read the whole thing. Other times I'll stop and make a comment here or there. It just depends. All right, starting in verse 10. Out of the same person's mouth there is both a praise and a curse. Things should not happen in this way, my brothers and sisters, of course. Remember, we talked about at the beginning, he's writing to the brothers taking the lead in the first century. And they were the ones taking the lead in the first century because of the way things were set up in that time, where men were primarily the ones involved in these things. Okay, verse 11. A well, or a fountain, does not provide both sweet and bitter water from its own source. So when they go to draw up water, obviously there's not two different sources mixed together, and one time you pull up the bucket and you get the sweet water, and another time you get the bitter water. You're just getting the water that's in the well, whether it's sweet or bitter. Verse 12, my brothers, a fig tree is not able to produce olives, or a grapevine figs, can they? Neither can salty water produce sweet water. Verse 13, who is wise and filled with knowledge among you? That one must show works that come from the proper course of life, with humility that belongs to wisdom. But, verse 14, if you have unrelenting or bitter jealousy and a selfish rivalry in your heart, you should not be proud of it and lie against the truth. Verse 15, this is not the wisdom which comes from above. Rather, it is earthly, physical, demonic, anti-Jah, certainly non-Jah. For where there are jealousy and selfish rivalry, in that same place there is rebellion and every evil affair. In other words, you just can't have jealousy and selfish rivalry and call it a day, right? Those are going to produce all kinds of other things that are also equally evil or destructive. Verse 17, but the wisdom from above is first clean or innocent, then peaceful, restrained, ready to yield, eager to listen, full of mercy and good fruits apart from discrimination, racism, and other bad things that divide people. We don't do that here. And it does not have a false appearance, or it does not deceive, pretend, fake. We don't fake things here. We're not trying to put on one hair and then go act another way. This is it. We just show up and do our thing. We make mistakes at times. We know that. But we're not talking about mistakes. We're talking about a cultivated source of water that is unclean or filled with terrible things like jealousy, selfish rivalry, rebellion, every evil affair, verse 16. Let's finish verse 18. So the fruit of righteousness is being made ready with peace for those who make peace. So we cannot always help what other people are going to do, right? Sometimes they don't want to be peaceful no matter what you try. You could try to get along. You could even try to work with them in ways that maybe you wouldn't normally do. They don't care. They'll still take advantage of you. You don't want to be around people like that. You don't want to cultivate or be around people who display jealousy, rivalry. Could you imagine in a Christian congregation? I know this happens. I've experienced it. Where people are competing with each other over, being viewed as someone who serves God. I guess that's a good thing to compete over in one sense, right? But not in the way like Cain and Abel, where you're getting so upset with jealous of the other person because they're doing a lot of good things and you're not. And you're just jealous and you're making it hard on them because you want to do what they're doing instead of just doing it, right? Like we've talked about with Cain and Abel, all Cain had to do was recognize that his brother was doing it right and he was not doing it as good. So instead of killing your brother, maybe you should just start doing it better. Then he would have had his brother. He would have had Jah's love. Who knows? Maybe he wouldn't still be alive today because sin had entered the human family. But he would have lived and been a lot longer and been a lot happier, I'm sure. So we can use that account of Cain and Abel, I think, in many ways because it teaches us so much. It teaches us about the human condition, that we're very easily manipulated or influenced by other people through jealousy, when we should be motivated by love, right? The right way would have been for Cain to say, oh, I see now. It's not easy when someone doesn't accept what you're doing as much as they do someone else. Nobody really likes that. But there's two courses. You can look at yourself, see what you're doing, and ask why it's not enough, and then do what you can see is enough, if it's something involving something like Cain and Abel's situation. Or you can just break down and destroy everything, right? That's not going to make anything better. But sometimes people choose that course because they just can't turn around and be peaceable, right? You see, let's go back to verse 18 there. The fruit of righteousness is being made ready with peace for those who make peace, right? He's not going to get peace for people who are making trouble, causing violence, all this destructive stuff. So that's why we have to be very careful. Let's go back to verse 17. That the appearance that people have can be false, right? They may appear like someone who seems like they're not selfish or jealous, but then when you look at the works and you see what they're doing, well, then you can start to determine what's really going on. Now, sometimes there can be some confusion. Like if you look at verse 10, it says, out of the same person's mouth there shouldn't be both praise and a curse. Sometimes we just blow it, right? And we make a mistake. Maybe we got injured and we got hurt, or someone upset us. We got hurt in another way, but we spoke out in an abusive manner, and we also try to praise Jah. So that can happen, but that's not we're not really talking about the momentary failures of life that we have where we just act dumb, or we act in a way that isn't typical for ourselves. what we're talking about is a situation where people are cultivating and allowing to develop within them and come out of them this duality, this praise and curse, so that it confuses people. If on the one hand, you're praising Jah all the time, and on the other hand, you're cursing humans all the time who are made in Jah's image, how is that going to continue? How are you going to continue to praise Jah and curse one of his own images? It's not going to happen. That's why we're so anti-racist here. That's why racism is such a dangerous and destructive thing, because it can be used to manipulate people's thinking and cause them to hate a Jah image. Very bad. Especially if you're trying to praise Jah himself. And then you run around and you curse and damage all these images of Jah. Remember, we're not talking about images like a wooden image. We're talking about humans. We're images of Jah. At least we're supposed to be. So we can try, and we should try, and when we fail, we should try to do better. And if we're having a problem and we find that we're like a fountain giving off two different waters, the bad water and the good water, well, that's not really going to work for very long. So we need to decide, which water are we going to give? The sweet water or the bitter water? We try to make the water sweet here so everybody can drink. There's already plenty of bitter water out there in the world, if that's what you're looking for. But here we look for mercy, peace, and praising Jah. But we cannot help it if people don't want to make peace, right? It's not possible. We could try. We could do everything we can. We could present a right appearance, no lies, just who we are. That's it. I'm a man, and I do these things, and I'm pretending. Like a lot of people today, you can't tell sometimes. As a man or a woman, I don't know. Well, of course, that's a literal false appearance, but you can also put on a false appearance of yourself and act in ways that don't truly reflect who you are inside. Either one is not right for us. We are straight up, right out in the open. We have nothing to hide and no reason to hide, because we serve the Most High. So whatever happens, we're ready. But we want the best things for us and for everybody, of course. So that's why we try to cultivate these good things versus bad characteristics like jealousy and rivalry. So that's a good text for us today, because it helps us to remember the things that we need to do, that we cannot cultivate olives if we're a fig tree. We cannot produce grapes from an olive tree, right? A grapevine gives grapes. An olive tree gives olives. A fig tree gives figs. So if you're a Christian witness of Jah, then you should be acting in the ways that demonstrate real Christianity and how we can praise Jah in Jesus' name. So don't get down on yourself if you make mistakes. We are imperfect. This is not like every time you give a little bitter water, you've got this bad well. No, we're sinful and humans, and we do have to accept certain little parts of our water that may not be the best. But overall, our water should be pleasant. It should be sweet, and people should be able to drink it. And unless there's an unusual circumstance where people don't want to make peace and there's nothing we can do. If it depends on us, then we should do everything we can to give Jah praise with no cursing at the same time or out of the same mouth. And where we do, we apologize and make it right. And then we work to produce peace and love and no jealousy among ourselves, because we won't be able to progress. We won't be able to progress in the way that Jah wants us to progress to his praise if we're constantly fighting with ourselves in some kind of selfish rivalry. That's not what Christianity is about. It's not a competition, and we're just trying to help each other get through life and give Jah praise in Jesus' name. That's it. That's why we were made. Most people today, I watch these shows sometimes. I was watching an interview the other day, and I'm thinking, Neither one of those two have any idea why they're here. It's not that they were like dumb people or bad or anything. They just, the way they were talking, you could tell they really didn't know why they're on this planet. A lot of people don't. I'm going to tell you right now, the reason you're here is to praise Jah. That's it. And he allows you to live on the earth, cultivate it, and multiply like he told Adam and Eve. But the real, ultimate, fundamental, core reason we are here, in addition to cultivating the earth and taking care of it, is to praise Jah. That's it. Everything you do should be pointed at that, because everything is because of that, him. And we can prove it. At least good enough to believe it, right? And with the best reasons, which show that life can only come from life, and that life is eternal and intelligent and identified in history as the God Jah. So that's why we read these texts, because we believe in Jah. We're not just going through a mental exercise trying to make ourselves feel better. We really believe these things. We really believe it's the right way to be. So if that's the case, let's try to work on jealousy and selfish rivalry, minimize them, maximize the peace, mercy, good fruits, all that stuff, so that we can give Jah the kind of praise that we were made to give him. Now, quick update. So this weekend, I was going to do a CW Jah talk, but I'm going to do an open session. And we'll do the open session on the celebration of the bread and the wine, and Jesus' use of the Passover to institute the new covenant arrangement involving the kingdom that would bring about God's will for the earth and heaven. So we'll do an open session on Sunday for that. All the questions about, the Lord's evening meal, the bread and the wine, the callings, everything related to those subjects. We'll read various texts. We'll talk about different things, answer your questions. So that's this Sunday, open session on that topic. And then I'm still working on various things. I've just been busy. It's hard to get all the videos up and different things and get all my other work done. But that's okay. I'll get to them. I just need to stay on a schedule that allows me to get all my work and things done so I don't get behind in other ways. Okay, so that's great. I'm glad to be back with everyone on these day texts. And I will do my best to stay regular. Be back tomorrow. We'll keep working through James. And then this Sunday, open session on the bread and the wine and Jesus' use of the Passover. So I thank you all for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day. And may God bless you in Jesus' name.